Hello. Okay. Let me know if the audio balance is no good. Okay. For today's live stream, we are going to talk about tidal cycles transitions. So let me get the documentation up here. So tidal cycles transitions allow you to kind of gracefully change from one pattern to another. So instead of either stopping and starting or an abrupt change, you can have kind of a one pattern ease into another. So I don't exactly know how all these transitions work, so we're going to figure them out. There's a few that I have used. There's clutch, clutch in, and crossfade and crossfade in. Those ones I'll start with. They're pretty easy. But I'll also talk about some of the basics of how transitions kind of work and what you can, the basics of using them. And then I'm going to jump into some of these others that I don't know very well, and we'll see if we can figure out how those work. So out on the tidalcycles.org website, there's a great, I say great, it just existed as of yesterday and I created it, so of course it's great. But we've got a new transitions documentation page, and I think literally at this very moment somebody is editing this list of transition functions and filling in some details there. So if I click on some of these, maybe there will be some new content. I don't know. So if you want to refer back to this in the near future, there should be some good content here. Or if you're willing to contribute to the wiki, you can, and if you know how this stuff works, feel free to contribute to some documentation. All right, so let's just get into it. So I'm going to start by creating a. I'm not going to create any, you know, I'm just going to create some kind of some stark patterns that have some contrast. So I'll start with like a bass drum pattern. And then I'm going to create another pattern that is more melodic. So we'll do something like this. We'll do good old RP. We love RP. Okay, so what I want to do is switch between the two patterns, but I want to use a title transition. So by default, I can't, if I just evaluate these patterns separately, it's a very abrupt change, of course. So what we want to do is instead use a transition. So let's do a simple crossfade. So what you do is instead of, I've got this pattern, this bass drum pattern on D1. Let me make this a little bit bigger, by the way, so that you can see it. So I'm on D1. So what I can do is apply a crossfade to D1. And you do that by doing X fade for crossfade, and then 1. So the 1 signifies that it should be on D1. Behind the scenes, D1 is just this, P1. If I do this, it's the same thing. So when you do a transition, the argument you specify for the transition is just saying which pattern. In this case, it's P1 or pattern 1. D1 is an alias to P1. D2 is an alias to P2, and so on. And you can even create any pattern name you want. But let's just stick with P1 and D1. So I'm going to crossfade D1 to this new pattern. So we'll start playing the first pattern, and then we'll crossfade. So as you can hear, the first pattern just fades out, the new pattern fades in, and I believe it's over 4 cycles. Now this is a good thing to know. So if I do a clap sound, just start at the beginning of the cycle here, we can maybe count it. All right, so now I'm going to do the crossfade. Yeah, so I think by default the transitions work over 4 cycles. So that's a simple crossfade. If you want to then keep playing on this pattern, so if I start the first one and then crossfade to the second one. So now if I want to keep playing, or if I want to edit and change this pattern as it's playing, what you're going to want to do is go back to D1, and then your changes will work live. If you instead just keep doing the X fade, like if I just do X fade 1 by itself after nothing is playing, that happens. It just starts the pattern. What I'm not sure about is if it will accept live edits. Yeah. So every time I edit a crossfade, it's going to crossfade into the new crossfaded pattern. So if I go back to the RP thing here, so now that bass drum is fading out. So if you use crossfade and then you edit and reevaluate, it's going to do another crossfade. So it's going to crossfade on top of the previous crossfaded pattern. which maybe that's what you want, but if you want to hear an instant change after crossfading, you're going to want to go back to a D1 or your original, a D or an original pattern, not a transition. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. There's also another type of transition that has this in convention in its name. So there's crossfade in. What that does is it accepts the second argument for the number of cycles to transition over. So by default it's 4, but we can change that to 8 or 6 or 100, whatever you want. So if we change it to 8, it'll be a longer crossfade. I'm not going to let that play all the way through necessarily, but you could hear that it's happening over a longer time period. Yeah, and like I said, you can do things like if I had a pattern called ASDF and put my bass drum pattern in there. Now, if I wanted to transition to do a crossfade to a new pattern, I can put the pattern name in and the number of cycles. That will work as well. Wow, that did not work. That did not do what I just said it would do. Interesting. There we go. That time it worked. Okay. Might be some kind of fluky thing I have. I want to show something important, I guess. I'm kind of bouncing around here, but transitions are not defined completely in the title library in Haskell. They are actually defined in the title boot up code in your editor. So if we open up, we want to go to GitHub, title cycles title. So this is the source code for title. There is a boot title Haskell file out here. And this is the boot up code that your editor uses. So Atom or Emacs or Vim or Visual Studio Code. And the transitions are defined on these lines here. So in my editor, I've got I think I've got my own custom boot up file here. So I'm just talking through this. I'm just kind of exploring it. So you can kind of see how these are wired up. The reason I was diving into this is I was wondering if that one time when it didn't crossfade in, if I had something defined incorrectly in my editor, but I don't think so. I think that looks correct. So we'll just leave that there. But anyway, that's some useful background info, perhaps, knowing where those are defined. All right, so let's go back to let's cover a new transition. So the next one I want to talk about is clutch, which I like to use a lot. And what clutch does is clutch will morph from one pattern to another, and it will gradually introduce elements of the new pattern into the old one, and it'll remove elements from the old pattern as it transitions. So I'm just going to change this up here just because I like variety. So let's I guess we'll go ahead and keep 4. So we'll go ahead and keep this RP pattern. So as I transition, you're going to hear that the old pattern starts to lose some of its sample events, and the new pattern starts to fill them in. I'm going to create maybe a more simple example here. So let's to make it a little more clear what's going on. So if I'm just going to create a simple drum pattern and then this little synth note pattern. And now I'll start the transition. So you could hear over 4 cycles, it starts to add events from the arpy and then removes events from the drum. Let's try it again. So it kind of degrades the first one and then starts to add notes from the second one. And of course, there's a similar function to the crossfade. Like crossfade in, there's also clutch in where you can pick the number of cycles that it transitions over. So I can change this to 8. So this is my favorite transition, and this is the one I mainly use when you've got, if you want to transition between 2 like prepared or composed tracks, and you're not quite sure how to move between them. This is a great way to do it. It just starts to blend the next track into the one you're currently running, or I don't know. It's kind of a neat effect. Sometimes you get some unexpected results with the 2 patterns combining their sounds together for a few moments. All right, so we've covered, let's go back to the docs here. So we've got, we've covered crossfade, crossfade in, clutch, clutch in. So then there's, the next ones I don't think I've ever used: anticipate, interpolate, and jump. Let's start with anticipate and see what it does, because I don't know. So let's just do an anticipate on this example we've got here. Oh, forgot to specify the pattern number. Okay, I really don't think that's working correctly. But it sounded kind of interesting. Let's try it again. Yeah, that's not right. What is wrong? Like I was just saying, I wonder if I've got my transitions defined incorrectly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the source file that I know is correct, this boot title HS, which is defined in the title cycles repository. And I'm going to evaluate them here in my editor so that I know that they're correct. And now let's try it again. I wonder if I've got a bug on my machine, or if there's a bug with title. All right, so this live stream is, we are learning together. That's what's going on. So I'm going to do Cabal list title. This will tell me what version of title I've got installed. I want to make sure I've got the latest. Okay, so I've got 107. That's what I'm running. I don't know if anticipate is working. This does not seem right to me at all. Let's listen again. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's, I don't know, anticipate in. Does that sound any different? Yeah, there's got to be a bug because I've defined these transitions as they are documented in boot title, and I know I've got the latest title cycles running, so I'm sensing it might be a bug. Okay, let's do interpolate. So, okay. Referring back to the docs. So anticipate not working so well. And let's try interpolate and see what that does. Because I don't know. And if, yeah, okay. Let's just give it a shot here. All right, so interpolate 1, targeting D1. Here we go. Yeah, that didn't transition at all. Let's try it again. So I've got a comment here that someone thinks interpolate is also buggy. Yeah, so that doesn't seem to work either. Let's try interpolate in just to see if there's a difference. I don't think there would be. Yeah. That's a little disappointing. I wanted to show some stuff. Okay, let's try jump and jump in. So these ones I am not familiar with at all. Let's try jump and see what that does. Yeah. Okay, so there's a comment that interpolate is for control patterns only. So that would be for so control patterns like if I were to do like speed and so if you were to do speed 1, 1.2, 0.8, 0.9, all right, so the comment on the stream is interpolates for control patterns only. I'm curious if you can show an example of what you mean. I'm not quite sure I follow. Like, is that for just the speed pattern? And do you do like interpolate 1 here? That doesn't seem quite right. Yeah. I'm misunderstanding. If you could provide an example, that'd be sweet. Another question is dupe your, oh, I see. Dupe your pattern and change speed. So let's do speed 1, and then we'll do speed 0.5 RB, and then interpolate here, like that. Let's see what this does. Okay, that was cool. Thank you very much for clarifying. That was excellent. Okay, so yes, as was mentioned on the stream comments here, interpolate will affect control patterns. So control pattern is like your speed or panning, or I'm assuming like an effect. Like, well, why don't we try some of that, huh? So if we do pan, if we pan from left to right, I bet interpolate will work for that as well. Okay, cool. That's fun. I wonder if we do room, I'm curious if reverb will also work, like an effect. So if we increase the reverb over 4 cycles. Okay, yeah, that's working. So there's a little bit of reverb. We're going to interpolate to a lot of reverb. Yeah, okay. So interpolate works for when you've got yeah, control stuff. So I don't think it has an effect for the samples that are playing. So I wonder if anticipate does the same thing. Is anticipate also a control transition? Let's try anticipate again. No, that's not right. Anticipate still seems wonky to me. Another question was, how do you check that you're passing the right parameters? That's a great question. So if you do in your editor, and you bring up your post window here, one way to do it is you can do a :T and then the name of your transition, and then enter. It will show in your post window the signature of the function. Unfortunately, I don't know Haskell very well, and this doesn't really make much sense to me. I would expect it to have like the show a control pattern. Yeah, I'm really sorry. I don't know Haskell well enough to really understand the signatures of the functions very well. I think what it's saying is that I don't really follow it. But fun tip, you can use this for anything. So :T, you can even put something like speed in here, which accepts a pattern of doubles, or S for the sample, which is a pattern of strings. If you want to know the type signature of something right in your editor, you can just do control or :T and then the function name. What's another fun example? Like jux, and it'll tell you what the signature of jux is. Yeah, there's also source code if you want to know if you wanted to know if we're getting these signatures wrong. When I'm running anticipate, I'm not getting any compiler errors. It just sounds wrong. So I think I'm using the right parameters, but you can go look at the title source code too, and just do a search for anticipate, and it'll find all the code in, so here's the transition source code. So here's that function signature we were just looking at. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if we can get that jump transition to work. Transition source. Oh yeah, thank you. Anticipate is an increasing comb filter built up. Okay, so all right. Sorry, I'm just catching up with the comments here. From the source comments, anticipate is a increasing comb filter, build up some tension, blah 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 blah. Okay, so I wonder if maybe I was just a little too impatient. Maybe this is working correctly. So let's try. Let's go back to our drum and then RB. Let's see. Let's just be a little bit more patient. See if this works. And here's the transition. There you go. Okay, so for those who are on the stream minutes earlier, I sincerely apologize. There is nothing buggy about this. That's exactly what it's supposed to sound like. At least I think it is, because I did not read the documentation. Anticipate. Where is it? Oh, where is it? Oh yeah, an increasing comb filter. Had I read this on line 184, I think I would have been a little bit more patient, because that's exactly the effect we're hearing. It's like this comb filter, and then the new pattern starts. So so it kind of does what it says, kind of builds up some tension and then starts the new pattern. So let's do a shorter transition with anticipate. We'll do anticipate in, and we'll do this only over 2 cycles. Yeah, okay, so that works perfectly. Sorry to mislead everybody earlier. Okay, so we've covered X fade, we've covered clutch, we've covered anticipate, and we've covered interpolate. Those are the transitions we've done so far. And yeah, I was also wrong about interpolate. It works for the control patterns, which is pretty cool. Okay. Next, let's try jump. So jump is so we've got jump, jump in, and jump mod. Those are the last 3 that we haven't tried yet. Why did I delete my pattern there? So I've got the docs open, but I'm going to just try it and see what it does first. Okay, so let's try jump. Let's see what it does here. Okay, sounds like it's not doing anything, but I've now learned from my mistake. Let's go look at the docs. Jump. Jumps directly to the given pattern. This is essentially the no transition transition. Variants of jump provide more useful capabilities such as jump in and jump mod. Okay, well there you go. It's not supposed to do anything. Jump in. Where's jump in? Jump in. Let's just give it a shot. Let's just try jump in. Jump in. Like jump in prime. Sharp jump transition after the specified number of cycles have passed. The psych transition, yes. It's like that, you know, everybody at the Algo Rave is watching you write the code and you're going to do this awesome transition. It's like, no. Oh. All right, so here's the first one, and then we'll transition with jump over 2 cycles. Yeah, so I think jump in is also a non-transition. You're just saying at what point to do the new pattern. In this case, I'm saying after 2 cycles. There's also jump in prime, which is, that only does at a cycle boundary. So jump in prime. So unlike jump in prime will only transition at cycle boundary. So I believe jump and jump in might transition to the new pattern based on when you eval, and then jump in prime will only do it at the cycle boundary. So when right at the beginning of your pattern, perhaps. And then we've also got jump mod, which is a sharp jump transition at the next cycle boundary where mod n equals 0. So mod n equals 0. So if you do a jump mod, then the number you specify, so when you do for example, in title cycles, there's the when mod function. And if I do when mod 5.3, on cycles 4 and 5, when mod will be true, I believe. It'll return 0, I think. Let me demonstrate. So jump mod. Let's just do a quick example of jump mod. And then it's not going to sound, it's going to be an abrupt transition, but let's just listen. And here we go. That was quick. Let's do it again. So I did it twice. The first time it jumped pretty quick. The second time it jumped after a few cycles went by. Let's try it again. So what's happening is it's using a modulus operation to determine when to jump. So the best way I can explain this, I don't, if you're familiar in mathematics or in computer science, what a modulus is doing is it's calculating the remainder of integer division. And in this case, when the number of the cycle running in the background, which could be in the hundreds or thousands, when jump mod will use 3 as in a division, and if the remainder is 0, it will then perform the jump transition. I hope I explained that right. The best way I can explain it is maybe with a different example. So if I do RB8 speed 1 and then let's do this pattern here. Okay, sorry, it took a second there to get something set up. So if I do when mod 5.3 speed 0.5 on cycles 4 and 5, or for cycles 1, 2, and 3, it's going to be the normal speed, and then for cycles 4 and 5, it's going to decrease the speed to 0.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. So that's what's going on here, is it's taking the cycle number that's running in the background. So it could be a large number, like, 3,000 if you've been running this all day. No, that's not exactly what it's doing. So I'm just failing at explaining this very well. Anyway, it's using a modulus operation to calculate a remainder in some integer division. And when the remainder is 0, the pattern will transition. In this case, it'll jump immediately. Okay, that took a lot of brain power to explain. And I probably did it very poorly. Okay, so those are all of our transitions. Because I like to recap things, I'm going to recap, and then I think we're going to be done. So let's go back to a basic drum pattern, and I'm going to crossfade, X fade 1. So here's crossfade. And you can do crossfade in if you want to control the number of cycles that it crossfades with. Then we've got clutch, which will gradually degrade the first pattern and undegrade, degrade into the new pattern. Then we've got anticipate, which will apply a comb filter and kind of increase that filter's intensity over 4 cycles, and then suddenly change to the new pattern. anticipate in, where you can control how long that takes. I'll say 2 cycles here. And interpolate. I've also got jump. Let's put that there. Let's do interpolate, which will interpolate a control pattern. So you've got to have a speed or pan or an effect or something. Interpolate. And then let's make this a melodic sample here. And then we'll interpolate that to half the speed. I'm going to use this one. I had no idea that such a thing existed. That's pretty cool. And then interpolate in, where you can specify the number of cycles that happens over. And then jump, which is the do nothing transition. It will just transition immediately. And jump in, which will allow you to say how many cycles to wait until the transition. There's jump in prime, which will only transition at a cycle boundary, and then jump mod, which will use a modulus integer calculation to determine when to make the change. So those are transitions. This stream ended up being exactly kind of what I was kind of hoping for, which is to make some mistakes and be confused. And a lot of people helped out in figuring out what these things actually do. So I sincerely appreciate that. I've learned a thing or two. Yeah. All right. I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. And leave a comment if you have a specific topic you'd like to watch another time. If that's a set of functions or composing or just doing something else. So let me know. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the future.